You've continued to express that you are disheartened by the characterization of your conversation with Nafisa Collier. Just again, seeking clarity, did you in fact say that Caitlin Clark should be grateful she makes $16 million off the court, because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything? And do you actually feel that way, that without this platform, players like Caitlin Clark wouldn't be making what they do off the court?
Is it panic time? Is it panic time? I don't know.
Panic time, said twice by someone who clearly does not have an answer. And here is the thing they should be panicking, because what just happened to the WNBA is not a rumor anymore. It is not social media speculation. It is not a think piece from an anonymous blogger with an axe to grind. Caitlin Clark, the face of the WNBA, the player who single-handedly dragged this league into the mainstream conversation. The reason half the people watching this video ever heard of women's professional basketball has reportedly signed a deal that is going to detonate every assumption everyone had about the future of this sport.
This changes everything. This changes everything right here.
Everything. That word is doing a lot of work right now, and in about 90 seconds, you are going to understand exactly why it is the right word.
This could cook unrivaled. This could cook everything.
Cook everything, not compete with everything. Cook it. And based on what we now know about the deal that was just signed, that might be the most accurate three-word summary of what is coming. But here is what nobody is connecting. The $150 million number that has blown up every sports platform in the last 24 hours is not even the most dangerous part of this story. The most dangerous part is what Cathy Engelbert's reaction reveals about just how exposed the WNBA actually is. And that story starts not with Clark, but with a room full of panicking executives at 4 in the morning. Let us set the scene, because the way this all came apart is as important as the deal itself. For months, Project B, the Saudi-backed international women's basketball operation, has been operating in the background, quietly, strategically. The kind of patient, methodical money movement that only happens when you have a $10 billion war chest and absolutely no urgency about timelines. While Cathy Engelbert was on camera talking about sustainable growth and incremental salary increases, Project B was holding clandestine meetings at European palaces. While the WNBA was debating whether it could afford charter flights for its players, Project B was purchasing the private jet company the WNBA was considering using. They did not buy a plane, they bought the airline. And then Caitlin Clark's agent reportedly boarded a Saudi-owned private jet at a private airport. Red-stamped contract in hand, lawyers and financial advisors in tow. And the number on that contract was not the $50 million figure that had been floating around online. It was $150 million, fully guaranteed, 5 years, with a minor ownership stake in the new league built and giving Clark not just a paycheck, but a voice in the organization's management structure. When that information reached the WNBA's front office, the response was exactly what you would expect from a league that has spent 27 years systematically underpaying its biggest stars and is now watching that decision come back to collect the bill.
We are told an emergency 4 a.m. meeting was called by Commissioner Cathy Engelbert and NBA Commissioner Adam Silver to address what insiders are calling the Great Exodus. Silver was reportedly seen screaming into his phone, demanding to know how they let a single player be worth more than a quarter of the league's valuation.
Silver screaming into his phone at 4 in the morning, demanding to know how they let this happen. And here is the answer to that question, Commissioner. You let it happen because for years, you treated the WNBA like a charity project instead of a legitimate professional sports league. You let it happen because every time a WNBA player asked to be paid her actual market value, the answer was sustainable growth. You let it happen because you assumed loyalty was free. It is not free, and Caitlin Clark just put a price tag on exactly what it costs. Now, Engelbert's reported reaction to the Clark signing has been described by sources close to the situation as furious. Not surprised, furious. And that distinction matters enormously because furious means she saw this coming. Furious means she understood the vulnerability. Furious means someone inside that organization knew this was a possibility, and the response was not to fix the underlying problem fast enough. The underlying problem has a name, and it is not Project B. It is the gap between what the WNBA pays its players and what those players are actually worth on the global market. Clark exposed that gap by signing a deal worth more in 5 years than the WNBA's entire annual revenue. But she did not create that gap. It was already there. Project B just made it impossible to ignore. Let us talk about the money, because the number matters, but the context around the number matters more. $150 million fully guaranteed. Over 5 years. That is $30 million per year. To put that in the context, most people watching this will immediately understand the entire WNBA salary cap for all 12 rosters combined is currently sitting at approximately $5.65 million. Caitlin Clark's annual Project B salary would represent more than 5 times the total payroll of an entire WNBA franchise. Clark's signing bonus alone is reportedly larger than the WNBA's entire salary cap, not her annual salary, her signing bonus, the upfront payment she received just for agreeing to sign the contract.
They are offering contracts of $1 million per game for their star players, and that's just the base pay. Winning the full tournament nets each player an extra $50 million.
$1 million per game, not per season, per game. And $50 million on top of that if you win the tournament. For context, the highest paid players in WNBA history have earned approximately $250,000 for an entire season. Project B is offering more for a single game than some WNBA stars earn in their entire career. And now, here is where Engelbert's fury makes complete sense from a strategic standpoint, because the moment Clark's deal becomes public knowledge, and it is already public knowledge, which is why every sports forum is melting down right now. Every single WNBA player with a contract coming up for renewal is going to have the exact same conversation with her agent. She is going to pull up that $150 million number, and she is going to ask one simple question: why am I accepting less? Insiders close to the situation say Clark herself views this deal as life-changing. Not just financially life-changing, though $30 million a year will do that, but philosophically life-changing. The framing from her camp is that this is a player who gave the WNBA its biggest cultural moment in decades, drove jersey sales through the roof, sold out arenas that were half empty before her arrival, and generated a media rights deal worth $60 million that the league bragged about publicly. And in return, the WNBA put her on commercial flights, told her the league could not afford to treat its franchise player like a franchise player, watched the Saudi operation show up with a custom-designed Boeing 747 retrofitted with spa rooms and a full-size basketball court, and said, "We think you deserve this." Clark's camp reportedly agreed.
While WNBA players are flying economy, worrying about rent, and battling for revenue share crumbs, Project B players are living like global royalty in a golden cage. The question isn't whether players will leave, it's who will be the last star left to turn off the lights.
Who will be the last star left to turn off the lights? That question, that specific, devastating question, is what Cathy Engelbert is now asking herself at 4 in the morning, because Clark was the first. But the transcript of this story has more names, and those names are not minor ones. Let us go through the names, because this is not a single player story. This is a systematic dismantling of the WNBA's talent base, executed with the kind of precision that only comes from a $5 billion opening budget and a team of talent scouts who have been watching WNBA games longer and more carefully than most WNBA executives. Aja Wilson, the undisputed best player in the world right now by virtually every statistical and analytical measure. Two-time WNBA MVP, Olympic gold medalist, the player who carried Las Vegas to back-to-back championships, and who, if she were playing in any other professional sports league on Earth, would already be earning 8 figures a year. Sources indicate Wilson is deep into negotiations with Project B. Not exploring, not curious, negotiating.
We've been told that Wilson is deep into negotiations, Stewart has mentally checked out of the WNBA, and Reese is openly using her massive social media platform to hint at an announcement that will change the game forever.
Entirely checked out. That phrase about Breanna Stewart is perhaps the most quietly devastating detail in this entire story, because Wilson negotiating is a financial decision, a player weighing an offer against her loyalty to a league she helped build. That is a decision process. That can potentially be interrupted. Mentally checked out is different. Mentally checked out means the decision is already made at the emotional level. The math is done. The conversation has been had. The only thing left is the announcement. And for a player of Stewart's caliber, a 2-time WNBA champion, a former MVP, one of the most complete players the league has ever produced mentally checked out means the WNBA just lost her without even knowing it yet. And then there is Angel Reese, who has built one of the most powerful social media presences of any athlete in women's sports, who has an audience of millions that follows her every post, every story, every comment, and who, according to sources, is already using that platform to hint at an announcement that will change the game forever. Think about what that means strategically. If Reese has already decided to sign with Project B, she is not just leaving the WNBA, she is taking her entire audience with her. Every follower who came to the WNBA because of Angel Reese is now going to follow Angel Reese to wherever Angel Reese goes next. Project B did not just buy a player. They bought a media distribution network with a built-in fan base, turning the WNBA's biggest assets into their own weapons. That sentence should be framed and hung on the wall of every WNBA executive office in the country, because it describes exactly what has happened. The league spent years building rivalries, personalities, and narratives. Clark versus Reese, Wilson versus everyone, Stewart's quiet dominance against Clark's explosive marketability. These were the WNBA's product, and Project B just acquired the entire product catalog. So what is Cathy Engelbert's actual response to all of this? Because beyond the reported fury, beyond the emergency 4 a.m. meetings, beyond the frantic phone calls, there has to be a strategic counter. The WNBA did not build a 27-year institution to watch it disintegrate without a fight. The reported counteroffer from the WNBA side has been exactly what you would expect from an organization that is reacting rather than acting. Marginal salary increases, a promise of some charter flights next season, an appeal to legacy, and the importance of being part of something historic. The players are not stupid. That line should sting, because it implies correctly that for years the institutional assumption inside the WNBA was that the players would accept whatever they were offered because there was nowhere else to go. That assumption was the entire leverage structure of the WNBA's labor negotiations. Players need us more than we need them. Players have no alternative. Players should be grateful for the platform. Project B just destroyed every single one of those assumptions simultaneously in a single signed contract. And here is the part of Engelbert's situation that makes it genuinely tragic rather than just politically embarrassing. She is not wrong that the WNBA represents something important. She is not wrong that the league has cultural significance that goes beyond basketball. She is not wrong that there is a legacy argument to be made about being part of the institution that made women's professional basketball viable in the United States. But here is the brutal counter-argument that Clark's camp, Wilson's camp, Stewart's camp, and Reese's camp are all apparently making right now. Project B is not building a rival WNBA. It is not trying to compete with the WNBA in the same markets with the same format for the same audience. It is building something structurally different in a way that makes direct comparison almost impossible. The WNBA operates as a domestic American league, 82-game season structure, American city franchises, regional fan bases, domestic television deals. That model works for the NBA because the NBA has 75 years of cultural infrastructure behind it and a global talent pipeline that feeds it automatically. Project B is operating on a completely different model. 7 two-week world tour style tournaments. Paris, Singapore, Dubai, Rio de Janeiro, Tokyo. Events in global fashion hubs designed to attract the world's wealthiest sponsors. Not basketball games, basketball events. There is a meaningful difference. Netflix and Amazon, not ESPN2 at 10:30 on a Tuesday night. Netflix and Amazon platforms that reach every country on Earth simultaneously, that have the production budgets to make women's basketball look like the global spectacle it deserves to be, and that have the algorithmic recommendation power to put Project B games in front of audiences who have never watched a basketball game in their lives. The WNBA's entire competitive advantage for 27 years was that it was the only game in town, the only professional women's basketball league in the United States with infrastructure, franchises, and television deals. That monopoly is what allowed the league to pay its players far below market value. There was no market. There was just the WNBA. Project B killed the monopoly. The moment Clark signed that contract, the market came into existence, and markets set prices, and the price the market just set for Caitlin Clark is $150 million. They are attempting to acquire all of the talent that makes the product worth consuming, and the WNBA's response charter flights and marginal salary increases is the equivalent of showing up to a gunfight with a strongly worded letter. The fans supporting Clark understand this. The fans worried about the WNBA's future understand this. They just disagree on who is responsible, and based on everything leaking out of the league's front office right now, based on Engelbert's fury and Silver's 4 a.m. phone calls and the emergency meetings, the answer to that question is becoming increasingly clear. Here is where we land, and this is the question that every WNBA fan, every women's basketball supporter, and every person who cares about the future of this sport needs to sit with right now. If Caitlin Clark can make $150 million outside the WNBA, if A'ja Wilson is in negotiations, if Breanna Stewart has mentally checked out, if Angel Reese is building social media anticipation for an announcement that will change the game, what exactly does the WNBA offer its players that justifies asking them to stay? The game is over. That is a bold statement. And whether it turns out to be accurate depends entirely on whether Cathy Engelbert and the WNBA's front office can move faster and more decisively than they have ever moved in the history of this league. Because Clark signed first, Wilson is in negotiations, Stewart has mentally checked out, Reese is building her announcement, 20 players have offer sheets sitting in their agents' inboxes right now, the clock is running, and the WNBA does not have 27 more years to figure this out. Drop everything in the comments. Would you have taken the deal if you were Clark? Is the WNBA fixable at this point, or is the damage already done? And which player do you think signs next? Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. This story is not slowing down, and we will be here for every single development.